Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him. He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all of His noble messengers, and in particular on the last of them all, the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as we greet you on this, the 17th day of Shaban, with As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we make the dua, which is Masnoon, Allahumma barik lana fi Rajabin wa Shaban wa balighna Ramadhan, Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Before we begin today's session, I want to inform you that this is our last session before Ramadan, and that immediately after Ramadan, inshallah, I will commence travel to Britain and then to Belgium, Netherlands, to Armenia, to Russia, to Switzerland, to Greece, to Albania, to Northern Macedonia, and then back to Britain, and then return to Trinidad, inshallah. I will remain in Trinidad until the end of this solar year. And then in January, I will travel to Pakistan for a stay of 3 months, inshallah, January, February, and March. When I return to Trinidad for September, October, November, and December, we will then continue this class, inshallah. So today we will not commence any new subject. Rather, we'll devote today exclusively to the question and answer and a discussion session. And before we proceed to our question and answer and discussion session, everybody putting pressure. They want me to comment on Ukraine, and I have already offered my first comment, and that is that the Western world, those who control power in the Western world, they spend more than $5 or $6 billion to try to bring about a change in government. They call it regime change in Ukraine, to replace a government which was friendly to Russia, replace it with another government which would be hostile to Russia, and therefore can serve better the interests and the agenda of the West and of NATO. They succeeded in that effort in 2014. When they succeeded in that effort, and the president of Ukraine fled from the country for his life, the people of Donbass said, we don't want to be a part of this color revolution. We don't want to be a part of a hostile agenda against Russia. And they resisted. And the new government of Ukraine then responded with 7 years of relentless oppression, military oppression, economic oppression. And the people of Donbass suffered, some of them died. They had to fight for their freedom. And Russia restrained itself from intervening in Donbass for 7 long years until Russia said, we have no intention of invading Ukraine. That's not our intention. We have the right to move our troops in our territory as we wish. But there's a red line that you must not cross. When that line was crossed, then Russia intervened. If you want, you can question me on that subject. And so Russia now is using power to resist oppression and to liberate the oppressed. And the response from the Western world has been that they will not intervene militarily because they don't want to fight Russia. But they will respond with massive economic sanctions and many other forms of sanctions to try to sink Russia. I have, in my talk, the first response to the Russian military intervention in Ukraine. I have said that this represents the beginning of a new world order. The old world order was one in which power was used to oppress. And the new world order is one in which power is used to resist oppression and to seek to liberate the oppressed. And this is precisely what Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran has portrayed. It's the story of Zulkarnain. And so we now look forward to tomorrow when power will be used to liberate the oppressed in Yemen, to resist the oppressor. And then the day after that, when power will be used to liberate the oppressed of Kashmir, to resist the oppressor. And at the end of history, when Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, and power will be used to liberate the Holy Land, the Abdul Muqaddas of Palestine, and to liberate the oppressed, defeating, destroying those who are oppressors. This has been my response so far to the events in Ukraine. There's much more I intend to speak about, but we're not getting the time really to do the recording. I'm just too busy, and my daughter, who is doing the recording for me, she's also very busy. So we're not getting the time to do the recording. But I hope we'll be able to do a recording sometime in the next few days, so we can get a second response on Ukraine, in which I'll direct attention most of all to Islam and economic sanctions. Now then, let us open the floor for those who want to ask any questions, or you have any comments to make. We have a long session today, and you'll have enough time to ask your questions and to offer your comments. So, okay, who is the first?
As-salamu alaykum, Maulana. From
Walaikum
Singapore.
Who is this?
I'm from Singapore.
Who is this?
Hassan from Singapore.
Hassan from Singapore.
From Singapore, okay.
Yes, yes.
Maybe
Okay, my question is,
maybe your volume is a little too high. Yeah, go ahead.
okay. My question is regarding on this the Euphrates River will come out a gold. That you said that they don't mess with that gold. You think there's a messing with that gold now? Is Russian and no the Hadith says,
Is this Hassan Mahmoud?
Yes, 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 yes. Yes.
My oldest friend, mashallah, Hassan. My oldest friend, yes. Go ahead. What's the question?
The question is regarding on the river of the Euphrates River that will come out gold, and they said the mu'min don't mess with that place, that gold. You think that there's someone is messing with that gold now? Is going to happen?
Yes, Hassan, you put your finger on the button. That's right. That's right, Hassan. You put your finger on the button. The monetary system operating in the world today, in which the US dollar is the international currency, they call it the reserve currency, and then follows the euro and the British pound and the Singaporean dollar and the Brunei, what is it called, dinar or dollar, Australian dollar, and so on. These are the hard currencies of the world. The Canadian dollar. These are the hard currencies of the world. And you notice that they all belong to the Western world, or they are clients of the West. And these hard currencies are the ones that are rich countries. And those who are not hard currencies, they struggle. The poor of the world have currencies which are always vulnerable. This is the petrodollar monetary system, which came into being after the Bretton Woods Accord, after the International Monetary Fund was established 1944 until 1974, 30 years. And then in 1974, the petrodollar monetary system came into being, when the US dollar is no longer linked to gold at the rate of $35 an ounce, redeemable in gold at $35 an ounce, according to international law. But rather that the US dollar is now backed by oil. Saudi Arabia has agreed that it will sell oil for only US dollars. And then Saudi Arabia got all the rest of the Arab oil producing countries to fall in line. And then OPEC came on board as well. And so oil was sold for only US dollars. If you did not have US dollars, you couldn't buy oil. This created a permanent demand for US dollars. And once you have a demand for something, it will survive. Even if it is bogus and fraudulent, it will survive so long as people demand it. And by creating this permanent demand, that you could not buy oil without US dollars. The US dollar is no longer backed by gold. It is now backed by oil, and it's now known as the petrodollar. It is this that our Prophet ﷺ was referring to when he made the prophecy that the river Euphrates will uncover a mountain of gold. The Salafi methodology led them to conclude that this is to be understood literally, and that a mountain of gold will one day emerge from underneath the river. Our view is different from the Salafi. We say that this is not muhkama, this is mutashabiha. meaning it has to be interpreted, not to be understood literally. So the Salafi is free to hold his view, but I would suggest to him, gently so, to find a comfortable sofa, because he had to sit down and wait a long, 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 long time for a mountain of gold to come out from underneath the river. Our view is that it is mutashabihah, it has to be interpreted. And we say that in 1974, when King Faisal agreed to the American demand to sell oil for only US dollars, and the petrodollar was born, we say that that's the moment when an ocean of oil underneath the river began to function as a mountain of gold, and Allah knows best. The Prophet ﷺ went on to prophesy that people will fight one day for that mountain of gold, meaning they will fight to preserve the mountain of gold. The mountain of gold is now under threat because the Russian military intervention in Ukraine has triggered massive sanctions against Russia. And these sanctions, economic and monetary sanctions, are now threatening the mountain of gold. People who live in glass houses should not throw stones because you are vulnerable. They didn't think about that when they went to slap the economic sanctions on Russia and monetary sanctions. And so what we are now looking at is that the mountain of gold is under attack, meaning that the US dollar can collapse. And if the US dollar collapses, it's going to bring down the entire monetary system with it. What can they do when they see the threat that the US dollar can collapse and the monetary system can collapse? The answer, in my opinion, Hassan, is that there is nothing they can do in response other than a war, a big war. And that will help them to cover up the collapse, that they are not to be blamed. And so I believe that the prophecy of Nabi Muhammad والسلام, is about to be fulfilled. I don't know when the big war will start, but it seems clear to me that the war which is to take place for the mountain of gold will commence as soon as the US dollar is threatening to collapse. The Prophet ﷺ went on to say that those who fight for the mountain of gold, 99 out of every 100 of them will be killed. And that is bad news for NATO, not for Russia. Because Russia is not fighting for the mountain of gold. Russia is fighting to cause it to collapse. It is the West which is fighting to preserve the mountain of gold. And finally, the Prophet said that we, the believers, must not touch that gold. So we are not going to be a part of this great war that is going to take place. It's a war between Russia and China on one side and NATO on the other. Any question, Hassan?
No, that's enough. Thank you, madam. That was the question. Ask the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I hope when I come to Malaysia, you'll come and meet me and bring some durian with you.
Inshallah, Maulana, inshallah. I'm waiting for that.
Next.
As-salamu alaykum.
Asif from Leicester. Yeah.
Asif from Leicester. Yes, thank you, Asif. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, Maulana. It's again one more, is Allah's blessing on us. Maulana, I got one comment, very small, and one request. The comment is, Alhamdulillah, your analysis from last 7-8 years, I'm studying your analysis is 100% correct. That all the evil powers from the whole world are against Russia now, and it's threatening their existence. But inshallah ta'ala, Russia would survive. And Maulana, the request is, I'm moving to Pakistan permanently end of this year, and inshallah when you will come to Pakistan, January, February, March, I will be in Pakistan, Lahore. I wanted to request you now that you have to stay with me for 1 or 2 days, and I would try to arrange something for lecture, everything. My hands are tight over here. I don't know whether you will accept my invitation, or I don't know how it's work.
If, when the time comes to see if it's possible, I have a team of students. I have a team of volunteers in Lahore, the Punjab, and they're the ones who are in charge of making arrangements. So when the time comes, we'll see, inshallah. Okay? All right.
Okay.
Any questions?
Ji, Maulana. Maulana, just a quick question. I remember the Soviet Union when the Soviet Union was fighting in Afghanistan. They around stayed for 7-8 years, and that bleeded the Soviet Union. What's your analysis are? If the Russia stays longer in Ukraine, is gonna be harm Russia more, or what's your analysis on that one, please?
Russia will not stay in Ukraine if Ukraine inclines to peace. If Ukraine agrees to a new profile which poses no threat to Russia and which recognizes the rights of the people of Donbass and of Crimea, the longer that Ukraine resists, the longer the war will last. Russia will not withdraw from Ukraine until its objectives have been achieved.
Very true.
Okay?
Thank you so much, Maulana. Thank you so much, Maulana.
Next.
Adam Hassan. As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Sheikh? Yes, so my question actually
Adam from Singapore or from Ukraine? Where?
Oh, sorry, this is Adam from the United States.
Adam from the United States. Go ahead, Adam.
I've noticed there's an attack on alternative media. So there's a attack on information right now. So it's getting harder and harder to get reliable information to keep up with what's going on in the world right now. How do you advise we keep up with what's going on, since they're doing so much censoring?
Well, I have to accept that the world is inundated now with a mountain of lies. But did our Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam not prophesy that in Akhir Zaman he said there'll be great liars, so beware? He said so. So it is now the responsibility of every believer to try to distinguish between lies and truth. And if you listen to my lectures, I think you'll be able to get some help in distinguishing between lies and truth. I have delivered only one lecture so far in response to Russia's military intervention in Ukraine. And the only reason why I have not delivered more is because I'm so busy at this time, and also my daughter who does the recording is also very busy at university, and I have my son-in-law, I have my son, I have my daughter-in-law, all of them in my home at this time. My son is in Trinidad for the first time in about 18 years. Yeah, so this is a little difficult time for me. I wish I had the time to record more lectures on the subject of Ukraine, but I hope to be able to do so soon. So don't bother about CNN and the New York Times and Al Jazeera. Don't bother about them. I hardly ever read the newspapers or listen to the radio or television. And probably that's the reason why I'm still able to think. Yes, I don't allow myself to be influenced by rubbish. If you make the Quran your guide, and if you are sincere to the book of Allah, then the book of Allah will help you. It is Al-Furqan. It helps you to distinguish that which is true from that which is false. Next.
As-salamu alaykum, Ustaz Imran. This is Muhammad from Manchester.
Muhammad from Manchester. Walaikum assalam.
Ustaz Imran, my specific question with regards to this topic is how you foresee geopolitical alliances changing because of this act by Russia. We've heard America already going to Venezuela for oil, trying to sign the JCPOA with Iran, trying to put pressure on India not to take Russian oil, putting pressure on China, maybe even perhaps allowing China to get Taiwan in exchange for China not supporting Russia. How do you foresee alliances changing as a result?
Do not turn to me and do not expect from me microanalysis. I'm not in that area. I restrict myself to macro analysis. And what I see, I think I have already explained it in my first response, I'm not sure, is that we are now in a turning point, a very dramatic moment in the historical process. This is where we are at this moment. That history is now moving, and it's moving in a different direction. Prior to this, for the last 200 years or more, power in the world was consistently used, relentlessly so, to oppress. This is modern Western civilization and those who control power in the modern West. Let me repeat, that power was used consistently to oppress, relentlessly so. And that now we are seeing a dramatic change. And that power is now being used to resist oppression and to liberate the oppressed. That's macro analysis. The people of Donbass in Ukraine were oppressed for 7 long years, miserably so. Russia waited with infinite patience for 7 years before they intervened. I would not have waited so long. And now that they have intervened in Ukraine militarily, the people of Donbass is getting freedom from oppression. I have gone on to say that the world can now expect tomorrow that power will come to the rescue of the people of Yemen to resist the oppressor and to liberate them from oppression. And that power will come the day after that to the people of Kashmir to resist the oppressor and to liberate Kashmir from oppression. And then I have said that at the end of history, when the Messiah is to return, power will once again come to liberate the oppressed in the Holy Land and to send the oppressor into the hellfire. This is macro analysis. So now we see that history is moving on two parallel roads, or two parallel tracks. The first one is the track of lies and oppression. And it commenced with Pax Britannica, which was followed by Pax Americana, about which the Quran spoke in Surah Al-Mursalat, Intaliku ba'da'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Intaliku ila zillin zi salasi shurab. Proceed to a shadow which will comprise of three parts. My interpretation, and I always insist, don't take my view unless and until you are convinced that I am correct. My interpretation is that the shadow is Dajjal. And so Dajjal will seek to fulfill his agenda while yet a shadow with these three parts. And then after Pax Americana, it is Pax Judaica, which is still to come. I have consistently refrained from commenting on Russia's relationship with Israel. And those who have insight would one day appreciate why I have been silent. So on one track of history, you have a Pax Americana, which is supposed to give way eventually to Pax Judaica. But that cannot take place while modern Western civilization still remains a dominant actor on the stage of history. And so the West does not want nuclear war with Russia. And Russia does not want nuclear war with the West. The West much prefers to fight Libya than Russia. Putin has said, we can destroy the whole of the United States of America in half an hour. And the world has now learned that when Putin speaks, you better listen. And so, how will the Great War take place? Answer, there are those who want the Great War. Because unless and until there is a Great War, the passage from Pax Americana to Pax Judaica cannot take place. And unless and until there is a Pax Judaica, Dajjal cannot rule the world from Jerusalem and declare, Ana al-Masih, I am the Messiah. This is the first track. And this track I have explained for 20, 25 years now. My first book, my bestseller, Jerusalem in the Quran, is based on this track. Pax Britannica, Pax Americana, Pax Judaica. And then Dajjal declaring from Jerusalem, I am the Messiah. The second track is one described in Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran. And this is the surah par excellence of Akhir al-Zaman. But the difficulty with Surah Al-Kahf is that you cannot understand Surah Al-Kahf unless you have the capacity to think. And thinking requires more than rationality. Proper thinking requires also insight. And I have labored for 20, 25 years, and my voice has been like the voice crying in the wilderness, because the Salafi just would not listen to me. The Darul Uloom will not listen to me. Those who are wedded to NATO, you would not listen to me, that's all. The Tabligh Jamaat have more important things to do than to listen to me. So for 25 years, my voice has been the voice of one crying in the wilderness, trying to explain Surah Al-Kahf and trying to interpret Surah Al-Kahf. But Surah Al-Kahf gives us the second train of history, which is the train of Zul Qarnayn, the one who possesses two curtains, meaning two generations, two people, two ages, two epochs. The first curtain is explained in the Quran, and the first curtain has the Black Sea centrally located in it, where power emerged on the foundations of truth. And that power was used to resist the oppressor, to punish the oppressor, to liberate the oppressed, and to help and to reward those who have faith and who are righteous in conduct. And when the second curtain of the Qarnayn is to come, power will once again emerge in the region of the Black Sea, resting on the foundations of faith. And that power will be used once again to resist the oppressor, to punish the oppressor, to liberate the oppressed, and to help and to reward those who have faith and are righteous in conduct. And my view is that Russia is doing that at this time. And so my view is that we are now witnessing the second curtain of Qarnayn. I might be the only voice in the world of Islam today saying this. This is my view. And of course, as with any other interpretation, we must always say, Allah knows best. And you must not accept my view unless you're convinced that it is correct. But my final statement is, if I am reading the Quran correctly, if I am explaining the Quran correctly, then it is truth. And the truth will survive, regardless of the critics. This is macro analysis, Muhammad. And I am not going to enter into micro. Next question.
Ustad Imran, usually you allow us 2 questions. My second question is about Surah Al-Kahf. And I've thought long about the 300 solar years plus 9 years for the lunar that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts there. And I thought, is there a potential connection with the 3 shadow phases of Dajjal and this time frame? Would you please comment?
I am of the view that the Quran is implicitly, not explicitly, pointing and directing attention to a modern Western civilization which will run through the world, rampaging on the stage of history with their feet stamping upon the oppressed, with bloody stamping of the oppressed for 300 years. And at the end of these 300 years, this reign of terror will end. And that's exactly what is happening now. That President Putin of Russia has made a statement plain and clear that the reign of the West as a dominant force in the world oppressing mankind is now coming to an end. He said that. The further implication is that the reason why the 300 years are mentioned and then what some say 9 is because the dominant profile in the world at this time in Akhirul Zaman is that all of mankind will be accepting 300 years. All of mankind will be following a system of time designed by Dajjal. All of mankind. Illa masha'Allah. And some say 9 was Dadu Tisa, meaning it's the exception to the rule to find someone who is not following the Dajjal system of time, but is following Allah's system of time. If you are following Allah's system of time, you will know that today, at least here in Trinidad, is the 17th day of Shaban. If you are following Allah's system of time. But how many Muslims here in Trinidad today, how many of them know that today is the 17th day of Shaban? This morning in the masjid, after Fajr, I asked only one person, only one knew that today was the 17th day of Shaban. So the dominant profile in the world will be the 300, and the minority profile in the world will be 309. The solar system, which is given by Dajjal, is in fact not solar, it's Dajjal system, secular. And the other one is 309. Okay, next question.
Thank you, Ustad.
Brother Ijaz Ahmad.
Hello?
Brother Ijaz?
Not yet.
Okay, Brother Muhammad Ali from Sweden.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam, Muhammad Ali. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
First of all, I would like to thank you for all so far you did for this lectures we had about methodology and about about Nabi Isa and all these events that you have developed, you have explained for us. Jazakallah khair. I have a comment and I have a lot of questions, but I'm not gonna ask all the questions. I'm gonna ask one. I would like to start with a comment. Sheikh Imran Hosein, you mentioned in your book, you in the Jerusalem, the Quran, you mentioned that we have go through a day like a year and then a day like a month. And then you said like day like a year was when England ruling, and then the day like a month.
1 minute. I said that Pax Britannica occurred during that time of a day like a month. They're not in synchrony with each other. It is not that a day like a year is the same as Pax Britannica, no. Within a day like a year, Pax Britannica took place. Go ahead.
Yes, it was my mistake. Because I have a little bit not good in English, but I do understand what you mean. So we have witnessed the end of the day like a month, right, in our day now, and we witnessing the starting of the day like a week sooner.
I prefer to say that we are now in a state of transition. I am not saying that a day like a month has ended. I am not saying that. I'm not saying that a day like a week has already commenced. I am not saying that. I'm saying that we are in the process of transfer from Pax Americana to Pax Judaica. And this transfer cannot take place without the Great War. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the West civilization. You said the main factor or the heart of the Western civilization is Gog and Magog. And those who understand Gog and Magog very well, they will understand what's happening today.
Gog and Magog are those who control power in the modern West. They control power in Pax Britannica, they control power in Pax Americana, and they will control power in Pax Judaica. They are Gog and Magog. Go ahead.
So what we can understand right now, we see that the rising of, as you mentioned, the second Qarn, and the second Qarn representing by Russia now, and they are working to support the oppressor, the oppressed people. At the same time, we do understand that they knew something about Gog and Magog and their eschatology, because they are a people with a faith, especially with a Christian faith. So they do know something about that. So they act in a way avoiding any clash with Gog and Magog. That's why they act with
I don't know whether Russia knows that this is the second Qarn of Qarnayn. Whether Russia knows that it will now use power to contain or to checkmate NATO. Whether Russia knows that there is a Pax Judaica still to come. It is a subject on which I have remained silent. Go ahead.
Okay, I understand, Sheikh. So what I do understand now, we've seen a lot of things going outside. We know that the West, they have a project or a plan for their future, which is the globalization order. And we know that Russia has another plan, which is like a multi nations or a multi-civilization. And that being represented by Alexander Dugin. You have met him once. So what I understand, the day like Jum'ah should works, as you mentioned, we're gonna see how it will transfer from a day like a month to a day like a week, and something will happen with the monetary system and even with the United Nations and with the Security Council, because there is a lot of news about the attempting to take out Russia from United Nations and Security Council, which is like a big change in the world order. So my question now, the first one was my comment. This is my question. Do we have like the time to like place ourselves in the right part? Is it clear now to see who should we support and who should we stand against? Is it very clear today?
Yes, Muhammad, I have already answered this, that it is important now for us to recognize that we in this Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam must reach out to our Orthodox Christian brothers to try to build friendship and alliance between the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam and the Ummah of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. I have said that perhaps the crowning event which will bring about this alliance rapidly would be after the Great War takes place, when a Muslim army will conquer Constantinople. And when that takes place, we will then be able to return Hagia Sophia to the Orthodox Christian world. And that will be such a heart-shaking event for the entire Orthodox Christian world, that whatever lingering resentment and hatred and distrust there is in the heart of the Christian, in consequence of 600 years of relentless Ottoman bogus jihad on the Christians, would eventually melt away. And the return of Hagia Sophia to the Orthodox Christian world will be a catalyst which will cement the alliance between Christians and Muslims, which has to take place before the Messiah returns. For as soon as the Messiah returns, it is these two communities he will have to guide to the last stage of history. And that is why Allah taught him, on the one hand, the Quran, and on the other hand, the Torah and the Gospel. And in between, he placed wisdom. وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَالتَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. So this is what we have to do at this time, Muhammad, that we have to make our best effort to reach out to the Orthodox Christian world, to try to build relations of friendship and alliance. This is why I'm traveling to Armenia, inshallah, to Russia, inshallah, to Greece, inshallah, and to Northern Macedonia, inshallah. Yes, next. Hello?
1 second.
As-salamu alaykum.
Brother Ijaz, yeah, go ahead. Abdullah, you Brother Ijaz was in front of you, so I'm asking him first, and you're way down the list, right? Brother
Okay, no
Ijaz,
problem.
Brother Ijaz, if I'm not hearing you, we'll move on to Brother Muhammad Shah from the Maldives, or the Maldives, sorry.
Hello?
Okay, Brother Ahmad Zuhair Ali.
As-salamu alaykum, Sheikh.
Alaykum salam.
This is Ahmed Zuhair Ali from Bilad, Sudan. My greetings.
Bilad
Sorry, Sheikh, I didn't hear you there.
Bilad Sudan.
Yes.
Go ahead.
1 second, Sheikh. My speaker just stopped working there.
Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now. So I was gonna ask you about what is the role of like states in like Africa and South America who are non-nuclear states primarily in dealing with a post-Malhama or maybe even during the Malhama or a pre-Malhama world. What is our role in a Pax Judaica world? Because we've heard that the West will most likely be destroyed and the East, Russia and China will be possibly in ruins as well and in hired effects. And then I watch your lectures on Pakistan and the Great War, and Iran and the Great War, and Turkey and the Great War. But I can't calculate what our states in like South America and Africa would be like in a post-war era. Do you have any views on this?
When you look at South America, when you look at Central America, which is so far away removed from the heartland of Islam, you find that in South and Central America, there have always been those who have stood up with great courage and great integrity to resist the oppressor and to seek to support and to help the oppressed. This was Venezuela. Venezuela was in the camp of the Zionists. Venezuela has oil, massive amount of oil. Venezuela has gas, a massive amount of gas. Venezuela has gold. And despite having all of this wealth, the people of Venezuela remain miserably poor, while an elite in Venezuela is filthy rich, and the wealth of Venezuela was going outside of Venezuela. The president, or the foreign minister of Israel, at that time, Shimon Peres, flew to Caracas. I think it was in 1995, if I'm not mistaken, to a tumultuous welcome from the Venezuelan government and the aristocracy, because Venezuela belonged to them. They had control of the oil and the gas and the gold. But then came Hugo Chavez, and look how he overturned that old order and brought into being a new order in which power was used in Venezuela to resist the oppressor, to liberate the oppressed, and to ensure that the wealth of Venezuela is shared with the poor. And look at the kind of result it received, how the Western world, with unimaginable hostility, have been waging war on Venezuela. The only thing they have not done is the military intervention. And while Chavez is now passed away, Maduro and his government have steadfastly held on to that profile of resistance. The profile started earlier with Simón Bolívar. Simón Bolívar, who is so famous that Venezuela declared itself the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Simón Bolívar resisted Spanish oppression. And Simón Bolívar waged a struggle for liberation for Venezuela from Spanish colonial rule. The same thing happened in Nicaragua, where in Nicaragua, the Sandino, I think this was his name, waged a struggle against the United States of America. For so many years, a struggle for liberation, for oppression, until today Nicaragua is free from this Zionist stranglehold. Same thing in Bolivia, except that for a brief moment, they were able to remove Evo Morales and put their own puppy dogs in charge of Bolivia, and then the tables are now turning once again in Bolivia. That is the picture in Latin America, where there have always been those who have stood up to resist the oppressor, to seek to liberate the oppressed, usually the American Indians. The same thing in Africa, the most important of all to have emerged in South Africa, in Africa, to resist Western oppression, the most important of all, in my opinion, in the modern age. I'm not talking about the Mahdi in Sudan and Lord Kitchener. I'm talking about Patrice Lumumba and the enormous wealth of the Congo, the diamonds of the Congo, the precious metals of the Congo that Belgium was exploiting mercilessly. And the Congo was being robbed of its wealth by Belgium. And Patrice Lumumba in the 1960s stood up courageously to oppose that and to resist, and they murdered him. So the name of Patrice Lumumba remains very high on the list. And then, of course, you have South Africa. Nelson Mandela is not the only name to be honored. Winnie Mandela must also be honored by all those who want to write the history of South Africa. So many others who resisted the Dutch and then resisted the British as well in South Africa. And then you have Ahmed Ben Bella in Algeria and so many others. But when we turn to modern African history, look at the president of Uganda, who was just spoken to say, but how come we're using paper as money? When they use the paper has value. When we use the paper, it's worthless. And they are siphoning our wealth. And this is Western colonialism taking place once again. This is the president of Uganda. Recently, he made this statement. I look at Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, who refused to participate in the UN General Assembly vote on condemning Russia. He said, no, we prefer to adopt a neutral position. You cannot force us. So Africa does have some backbone. While there are many puppy dogs in Africa, there are also those with backbone in Africa, like South America. And so what I see in the future is that those in those in Africa and those in South America and Central America who have some integrity in their hearts would be heartened, would welcome the lead being taken by Russia now to stand up to Western oppression and to seek to liberate the oppressed of the earth. Next question.
As-salamu alaykum, Sheikh.
Walaikum salam.
Like, this is Ijaz Ahmad from India. Am I audible?
Ijaz Ahmad from India.
Yeah, Ijaz, you had mic problems before?
Yeah, yes. Sorry.
Okay, then go ahead. No problem.
Yeah, thank you, Sheikh. Sheikh, I have a comment to make regarding the Malhama. As you told in the earlier, the clash between the petrodollar and petro-yuan could be the right reason, as prophesied by our Prophet. That is the only reason why the Malhama will take place. And I also believe that when the Arabs have a positive relationship towards the Chinese and the Russians, there could be a possibility, as prophesied, there will be a plague in Arabia, which it will affect all the Arabs. So they might have a plan to send a disease or a similar like this COVID in Arabia in order to threaten them before signing that deal. So that is one of the comment I would like to make. And I have 3 questions, Sheikh. Since this is the last Q&A session, I would like to have your suggestion as well. The first question. So how does the role and situation of the Muslims in India will change post-Malhama based on Islamic eschatology? Is there any possibility that there'll be a friendship and alliance between Hindus and Muslims in India, and whether the image of Islam will be viewed positively in the hearts of the Hindus in India. That is the first question, Sheikh. So can I go ahead with the...
Ijaz, you made a comment. I cannot respond to it because I didn't understand what you said, but never mind, it's a comment, not a question. And your question is what is the way forward? What is the likely future of the fate of the Muslims of India? And I'm still learning the subject, Ijaz. I'm still learning the subject. I'm reading a book at this time on the Mughal rule in India. And the thing that baffles me is that how is it possible that so many Indian Muslims have followed in the same footsteps of so many Turkish Muslims and Muslims from the Balkans in hailing Ottoman rule over the Christians in the Balkans and hailing Mughal Muslim rule over the Hindus. Wow, 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 kya baat hai. We defeated them, we ruled over them for so long. How can so many Muslims be so blind? The implications of this blindness is that you have endorsed Muslim rule over Hindu India as something that you have accepted and you defend. Whereas when you read the history of Muslim rule over India, these were not people who represented Islam. Most of them were drinking wine. Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, most of them were drinking wine. I don't know if Aurangzeb also drank wine. And even those before and others, they were warlords. They waged war to rule over people. They didn't wage war to liberate the oppressed. So how can you declare that this Muslim Mughal rule over India was something that was justified and validated by Islam? I can't understand it. And unless and until you accept that Muslim rule over Hindu India was not sanctioned by Islam, and therefore it was Islamic imperialism, how can you move forward? How can you move forward? The future I see is one in which I find it difficult to accept that the Darul Uloom will ever produce a different kind of Muslim leadership in India. My view of the Darul Uloom is that it will continue to produce the same Maulanas and the same Muftis and the same Ustads that they've been doing for the last 100 years or more. That the Darul Uloom will not be able to produce one Muhammad Iqbal or one Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari. And unless you can produce an Iqbal or you can produce a Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari, how can you emerge from this predicament in which you are today? I don't see any hope for Indian Muslims unless and until you can get a different caliber of leadership who is able to use the Quran to understand the reality you face today and turn to the Quran for guidance how to extricate yourself from that reality. I have already given one lecture on Islam and Hinduism in Akhirul Zaman. And you will see that my position on the subject of Islam and Hinduism is different from the ISIS version which seems to have been that of Aurangzeb, the ISIS version of Islam, in which all the Hindus are kuffar and idol worshippers and so on, and the only response we have for Hinduism is the sword. That is the ISIS version. And then you have the other side of the coin of Akbar trying to establish a new deen. He called it Deen-e-Ilahi, which will unite Hinduism and Islam. And then you had Guru Nanak attempting to do the same thing with the Sikh movement. And then you had the son of Shah Jahan. One of his sons was Aurangzeb, but his elder son, his name was Muhammad Darashuko. And this is a man we need to look at carefully, because he was doing things different from Akbar, different from Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi, who's known as Mujaddid al-Fithani. But he was trying with some sincerity in his heart, using the Sufi road to try to bring about a, I don't know if I'm using the correct word, a rapprochement between Islam and Hinduism. I find it difficult, Ejaz, to understand why is it that in more than 1,000 years of the Muslim presence in India, in Hindu India, why have our scholars of India, Muslim scholars in India, Islamic scholarship in India, why have they not used the Quran? Use the Quran to try to reach out to the Hindu mind and to build whatever can be built of bridges that are validated in the Quran between Islam and Hinduism. And when there is a spade, you call it a spade without regard for consequences. Like to say that all of mankind is one family, that all men are created by Allah equally, and no human being is born with a birthright of superiority over another human being, which is the caste system. And that all of mankind will stand before Allah on Judgment Day as equal in His sight as are the teeth of a comb. So when you have to call a spade, you call a spade without regard for consequences. And who vex? Vex. But other than that, there are bridges which can be built. And when you can build those bridges based on your source of truth in the Quran, you build them. I am not aware of any outstanding scholar of Islam in these long years who has done that, who turned to the Quran as a primary source of knowledge to try to assess Hinduism and to build bridges where it's possible. On the other hand, we have the Sufis, and the Sufis of India were famous for traveling on many different stars. I prefer to travel, not to stars. I prefer to travel. Quran. Yes. Interesting journeys that these Sufis have made. But I'm hardly impressed when you don't build a foundation from the Quran. And so my answer to you is I'm pessimistic. Even while I'm now reaching out to scholars of Islam in India to try to collaborate with them, offering guidance for Indian Muslims. I am pessimistic, Ijaz, because I don't believe it's possible to bring a new leadership for the Indian Muslim community scholarship will be based on the Quran. Thank you. Next one.
Okay, I have a question here from Sister Sajida from South Africa. She would like to ask the Sheikh. As-salamu alaykum, Sheikh. Could you provide some guidelines on the role of womanhood in these end times? And if we women cannot be at the forefront of armed conflict, how do we support the Ummah, especially when we are struggling to find righteous spouses?
The most important thing for a Muslim woman in Akhirul Zaman is to ensure that she is not misguided and swept away by the currents that are now sweeping women across the world into the arms of Dajjal. The brainwashing of women around the world is so intense that hardly a woman escapes. Hardly a woman escapes. And to find a woman whose feet are firmly planted in the truth which is in the Quran, and who struggles to remain faithful to that truth, and who would turn to the Hadith and the Sunnah to the extent that it is in harmony with the Quran. And then use that body of knowledge to understand the world today and to then walk on Siratul Mustaqim. It's difficult. It's already difficult for the men folk, but it's vastly more difficult for the woman. Because the Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, warned. He said that the last people to come out of Dajjal will be women. And a man would have to tie down his wife, his sister, his daughter, meaning to coercively restrain them, to save them from being seduced by Dajjal. My role is to show patience, infinite patience with such women who I see around me always brainwashed. Infinite patience. And when you cannot talk to them, because you can talk and you can talk and you can talk, you're not going anywhere. When you cannot talk to them, you have to talk to them through the way you live. And kindness, to show kindness and to show compassion, all beautiful qualities in trying to teach people. So that's my first response to you, sister. It is almost impossible today for a Muslim woman to remain faithful to the Quran and faithful to the Hadith and Sunnah to the extent that it is harmony with the Quran. And this is because of the modern revolution taking place in the world of women, sponsored by Dajjal. The second thing for a woman is to understand that it is from her that the young lions will come, that tomorrow will fight on the battlefield. So when you choose a husband, you don't choose a husband by how good looking he is. You don't choose a husband by how attractive he is. Yes. You choose a husband by the faith that he has in his heart. You choose a husband by his character. You choose a husband by his knowledge. You choose a husband by his spiritual profile. You choose a husband by his kindness and his compassion. And of course, you choose a husband by his physical appearance. If you choose the husband who is a worthy person, then from that union you can get children who can be trained to grow up either as beautiful flowers in the garden of life or as lions on the battlefield. But if you choose rubbish, then life can be very difficult. That's the second comment I have to make. The third comment is that when a husband goes astray, a wife can still stand up powerfully to save the family. In this part of the world where I live, where people became as slaves from Africa, and the family structure was broken down, and the African slaves suffered and suffered and suffered. We found in this part of the world, and also in the United States, it was the African woman. The African woman. She was the one who stood up to try to preserve the family, even when the men were reckless in their conduct and wayward. The woman is the one who held the family together and brought up the children. And so once again in Akhir Zaman, a woman, a wife, can still preserve a family while the husband may be drinking alcohol or he's in the casino. And the final comment is, even if your husband is enchanted by the wealth of the world and doesn't want to leave the city, it is you, the wife, the mother, who must ensure that you take your children out of the cities into the remote countryside where they can be saved from the corruption and the dangers of the city. Thank you. Next question.
Brother Muhammad Shah from the Maldives.
Maldives.
Sorry. Can you try again? Okay. Binti Moin from India.
As-salamu. I'm from India and I wanted to ask a question regarding the class. Basically, it is an ayah of Surah Al-Ruf in which Allah Ta'ala says, وَلَوْلَا أَنْ يَكُونَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً لَجَعَلْنَا لِمَنْ يَكْفُرُ بِالرَّحْمَنِ لِبُيُوتِهِمْ سُقُفًا مِنْ فَضَّةٍ وَمَعَارِجَ عَلَيْهَا يَظْهَرُونَ. And it is translated as, and if it were not that the people would become one ummah, we would have made for those who disbelieve for their houses, ceilings, and stairways of silver upon which to mount. Can you please explain this ayah, Sheikh?
I have done so in one of my recent books, but I can't now remember which book is it. Maybe you should look for the Messiah, the Quran, and Akhir Zaman. And I have offered a comment on this verse of the Quran. The sad thing is that I'm so mentally tired now, I can't even remember what is the comment I made on the book. So you're going to have to go to that book to look and search for that comment, okay?
Okay.
Next question.
Absal?
As-salamu alaykum, Sheikh.
Walaikum salam.
Sheikh, I'm Absal from Tamil Nadu, India.
From where?
From India.
Okay,
India.
India, yes.
Sheikh, I want to have a question regarding the Hadith that after the Malhama, that there would be 120 banners around which a Muslim would be fighting around. Hello.
Could you repeat the question again, please, brother?
Yes, Sheikh. There's a hadith, Sheikh, that the Muslim Ummah would fight Christians after the Malhama. There would be 70 banners. Each banner would be consisting of 7. Yes. Muslim?
The Muslim Ummah will be, take your time and speak a little slower, inshallah.
Muslim Ummah fighting the Christians after the Malhama.
Muslim Ummah fighting, okay, yeah.
Christians with the 70 banners of flags, 70,000 army.
Hadith in the army of the 70,000. Go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
There is a hadith.
Yeah, yes, Sheikh.
There is a hadith which declares, if I am remembering correctly, that the Muslims and the Christians will join together to fight a common enemy, and they will defeat them. And then the Christian will get up and say that the cross is victorious. And then a Muslim will get up and say, no, it is Allah who is victorious, and he'll kill the Christian. And then all the Christians will turn on the Muslims and start fighting with them. And this army of the Muslims is supposed to be the best army in the world. But 1/3 of the Muslims will be scared and run away. And 1/3 will fight and become martyrs. And the last 1/3 will be victorious. Is this the hadith you're talking about?
Sheikh, you are perfect, Sheikh.
Right.
Yes, Sheikh.
Right. Good. Have I not taught a lesson? Have I not taught a lesson so many times that you are now fed up of me?
Sorry, Sheikh, I was late student, Sheikh. I just started following lately for Sheikh.
Have I not taught a lesson so many times?
Yes.
Have I not taught a lesson so many times that people are now fed up of me? Sheikh, we've heard it so many times. Why are you repeating it? Huh? I am now 1 foot or 2 feet or 3 feet away from my grave, and I have to repeat it again. That you never take a hadith by itself in isolation to study it. But that you but that you always go to the Quran, and that the Quran has absolute truth. And the Quran must sit in judgment over the hadith. I have deliberately refrained from commenting on this hadith. Excuse my language. While a sheep who have no capacity to think keep on slamming me with this hadith. Oh, look at him, look at him, look at him, look at this hadith, look at this hadith. And I choose to remain silent. Let the sheep bleat. Let them continue, because they have lost the capacity to think. Why should I constantly do your homework for you? Why can't you think yourself? Do I have to do everything? Can't you use the Quran to judge this hadith? My response is, my teacher would say, I'm not going to put you on my back and climb the mountain. I'm going to teach you how to climb the mountain. So I'm not going to answer Any question on this hadith? No. Like the relationship between Russia and Israel. I am not going to answer any question on this hadith. You figure it out yourself. I should not have to teach every single thing, and you have nothing else to do. You don't have to think. I'm training you to think. So insofar as this hadith is concerned, you go and do your homework. Next question.
Shah Zaib.
Can I say something for 1 second? I've been following Sheikh since the beginning and before that, but I just wanted to know if you can fit me in, if I can ask a question after, please.
Yes, who is this?
My name is Danielle from Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
From Montreal, Canada. Go ahead, yes, please, go ahead.
So I've been listening to you on like the people in the West, right? So I ended up coming in contact with like villagers in Pakistan, and it's a village in Pakistan. So like I've been offered to go there. So, and I'm just like hesitant to like sell all my stuff and leave Toronto. So basically, if I leave here and go to that village, they'll give me a place to live with me and my children. And it's in an Islamic village, Alhamdulillah, for that.
What's your question?
So, because you're saying that we should leave the West, right?
Oh, yes.
Leave the West?
I don't know whether you are aware of it. I said, I don't know whether you are aware of it, but the law in Canada requires every single school in Canada, including Islamic schools, to teach that a child can have two daddies. Are you aware of that? Are you aware of that?
Yes,
Hello?
I'm aware of that. Yes, I'm aware of that.
Fine. Good. If you send your child to a school where he can be taught that a child can have two fathers, then you are violating the rights of an innocent child. You are no longer Rabb to that child. Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. You are Rabb to a child. You have to protect the child. If you keep your child at home and don't send the child to the school, the state will come and take the child away from you. So those who choose to continue to live in Canada, let them make their choice and let them face the consequences of that choice. I have suggested, and I do it gently, that it is an imperative for a believer, not just a Muslim, who follows Muhammad to leave such countries and go to some other part of Allah's earth.
Right.
You will not face such oppression.
Right.
If you go to live in Pakistan, I will hear 100,000 different complaints about life in Pakistan.
Right.
And so then what do? Go back to Canada?
No.
I have gone through in my life such stress, such difficulties, such pain, such suffering, that you would not believe. You would not believe that Imran Hosein suffered these things. But I have borne all of it with patience. Yes. People have said, Sheikh, where do you get all patience from? Incredible patience. I have borne all of it with patience and have not run away from a battlefield because I didn't like this or didn't like that. And you put your trust in Allah and you bear the difficulties with patience. And eventually Allah will give you a happy life. I have friends, I have brothers, people I love, and they followed my advice and they left. They left this country and left that country and left the other one, went back to India, went back to Pakistan, went back to Bangladesh, went back to Egypt. And then after 5-6 months, they go back. They can't take, they can't live here. So I feel sad for them. Yes, I would advise you to leave Canada by all means.
All right, because I did find a Muslim village that is willing to take me, and doing that from here is hard to do. So, like, if I just pack all my stuff and leave, I have a place to go. So I think I'm going to do that, inshallah. Like my older kids, they don't want to move, come to Pakistan, so I'm just going to have to leave them behind. So I'm already made the decision that I want to go to Pakistan. I'm just trying to convince my kids to come with me.
When it comes
And that is not, they are 15 and 16 years old, but I mean, if you don't want to come with me, then I should just leave, because I know the Malhama is starting soon at any time.
That's correct. That's correct. If you're on board a ship and the ship is sinking, and no one can prevent the ship from sinking, and when the ship sinks, all those on board will perish, what do you do?
Right.
Answer, you will be a fool to remain on board the ship until it sinks.
Right.
So if you have to leave, you leave. And if some of your children don't want to leave, then leave them behind and leave. That is the correct way.
Okay.
Once you leave, don't go back on board the ship. Once you leave. And if you put your trust in Allah, then Allah can open doors for you even where there is no door. Okay, next.
Sheikh, this is Ahmed Zuhair from Sudan. Is it okay if I just make a quick comment
Yes.
on the topic of hijrah? So I'm 18, 19 by the moon actually, and I made hijrah back to Sudan from Ireland, and my family is still there. I've been doing my utmost best to message them about how the war is coming, and Ireland, even though it's not a member of NATO, it will be heavily affected by the nuclear radiance, and it's an industrialized country, so no electricity, no internet will damage the economy, and it's a Eurozone country. So leaving my family behind was one of the hardest things I've done. I made hijrah back to Sudan in December, right before the tensions with Russia were boiling up. But every now and then they're starting to believe me, because I keep bringing them proofs and I keep sending them your book, Sheikh, the Gog and Magog, and the Islamic view on Gog and Magog, the Quran, the Great War in the West, and I've been trying my best to let them leave. But it should definitely do your best to make dua is my advice. Make istikhara, but definitely saving yourself is definitely a priority if they won't listen. But definitely do it for Allah. Make sure your intentions are pure, and inshallah it will be for the better. That's just all I have to say.
You have done the correct thing by leaving Ireland to go back to Sudan. You've done the correct thing. If they choose to follow you, that's in their benefit. If they choose not to follow you, they will face the consequences of their choice. Okay, don't let it worry you. Next.
Shahzaib.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Yes, Shahzaib from?
Assalamu alaikum, Shahzaib from Pakistan, Karachi.
Shahzaib from Karachi, my old city. Go ahead, Shahzaib.
Sheikh, it's very great for us whenever you're sharing some comments regarding Islam.
Brother, you need to speak a little bit louder and a little bit more clearly, please, inshallah.
Okay. You hear me now?
Yeah.
So, Sheikh, it's very great for us whenever you share your experience and views regarding Islam and Hinduism here in Pakistan, as we all know about what Ottoman did in Orthodox Christian, same as Mughal did for Hinduism. It's to thank you. I again thank you for your comment. It will increase our knowledge and our criteria of research to find what was happened in the recent year. And now I just have one question regarding this class. In Quran, Allah Ta'ala asked Jesus, وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. Allah Ta'ala also mentions two previous scripture books' name, but he didn't mention the Quran name. Is there any wisdom?
The question appears to me to be, I may be wrong, that he first mentions the Quran, وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابِ, and Allah will teach him the kitab, which is the Quran, وَالْحِكْمَةِ, and Allah will endow him with wisdom, وَالتَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلِ, and Allah will teach him the Torah and the Gospel. And you want to know whether there is any significance or any special implication of the mention of the Quran first before the Torah and the Gospel.
Sheikh, no. My question is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions the previous book's name, but he mentioned only Kitab. Why he never mentions the name Quran instead of Kitab?
Why he mentioned Kitab and does not mention Quran?
Yes.
To give you some homework, yeah. He gave you some homework to do, yes. Next question.
As-salamu alaykum. Can I ask a question?
Abdullah, I'll make sure you're 1, 2, 3. You're the fourth person after this person who's now gonna.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, but I will ask multiple questions, not just one, because it's over an hour now. Yes.
Okay, inshallah.
Okay.
There's a long line, Abdullah. Don't worry.
I know.
Farjad Akmal.
Go ahead.
As-salamu alaykum, Sheikh. Farjad from Karachi, Pakistan, once again. Hope you're doing well.
Yes, go ahead.
Sheikh, my first basically is my request that when you visit Pakistan, please stay in Karachi for like a longer period. Last time you didn't stay much in Karachi. I wish you to.
But I will travel to Pakistan at the beginning of January.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. And I will spend January, February, and March. Only
Perfect.
3 months. And I wish I could stay longer. Because 3 months is not enough. Pakistan is a big country.
Yes.
But it is my predicament that my wife is now over 73 years of age, and she's too old. She doesn't want to travel anymore. And she cannot continue to live without me for such long periods of time. So I have to make an arrangement now. I said, okay, I will stay with you for 3 months and I'll travel for 3 months. And this is how the rest of my life is going to be spent. But I'm accustomed to this. I'm accustomed that I sleep on a different bed every night. I live out of a suitcase. I'm accustomed to it. Yes, I can live with it. So I can only spend 3 months in Pakistan, and I have to divide the time between Karachi and Lahore, Rawalpindi, Islamabad, and I've not been to Quetta as yet, Peshawar. So many different, I know in Punjab, so many kinds. I've not been to Sindh, so many cities in Sindh. So I don't know how we'll divide the time, how much time I can spend in Karachi. Yes, go ahead.
Right. So Sheikh, I have 2 questions. Basically, one question is about the economic collapse that is coming. Basically, you said in your previous lecture, I'm listening to you since Alhamdulillah, since the Arab Spring. So you said that the US dollar is in a place called the ICU, and it's soon going to die. It's breathing its last breath. Do you think this conflict between Ukraine and that was going around and US dollar is basically on the verge of collapse? Do you think that we are soon going to witness the final nail in the coffin for the US dollar?
Good question. Good question. Russian President Vladimir Putin has spoken on this subject recently. And he has predicted that this is going to happen. That the day of the West is now coming to an end. That their system of dominance over the world, including political and economic dominance, is now threatened and coming to an end. From our perspective, however, it's the mountain of gold. The prophecy of the Prophet ﷺ pertaining to the mountain of gold. I believe 1 hour ago at the beginning of this talk, I did speak on the subject earlier in this session, okay? So if you were listening, you'd already heard my view that Saudi Arabia is very much angry with his present American president, Biden. The Saudis are led by Mohammed bin Salman, not by the king. He is the effective ruler. And Biden has said of Mohammed bin Salman, he is responsible for the murder of Adnan Khashoggi, which is correct. And that Mohammed bin Salman should be considered as a pariah in the world today. And Biden is correct. But Trump said, yes, we know he's responsible, but politics is politics. We need Saudi Arabia. So Trump refused to attack Biden. I'm sorry, Mohammed bin Salman, but Biden attacked him. And so now Saudi Arabia is angry and furious and wants revenge on United States. And the Saudis don't care the consequence. China had made the offer a few years ago that we're prepared to pay for Saudi oil with Chinese yuan. And when we pay you with the yuan, we are prepared to redeem the yuan for gold. So we will not be in conflict with the Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund. The Saudis have been hedging for these few years now on responding. But now Saudi Arabia has indicated we are prepared to talk. And the Chinese president is going to visit Saudi Arabia after Ramadan. So after Ramadan, we are likely to hear an announcement from Saudi Arabia making a deal with China. And China is the world's largest importer of oil. And China has the biggest economy in the world today. That China will import Saudi oil, and instead of paying for it with US dollars, which is the petrodollar monetary system, which is the mountain of gold in Sahih Bukhari, that China will pay for the oil with yuan, Chinese yuan, and that will redeem the yuan for gold. If that announcement is made, that could be the final nail in the coffin for the US dollar. And therefore, we can expect the Malhama, or the Great War, to take place in order to salvage. They will wage the Malhama to salvage the mountain of gold, meaning to try to save the petrodollar monetary system. Good question on your part. Next.
Opus.
Sheikh, one more question, one small question. Laylatul Qadr is approaching, and it's just a small question. And you talked about it earlier in this lecture, in the speech, that because we are not following the time of that Allah has given. So do you think that so many Muslims these days don't feel the essence of Laylatul Qadr because we are not following the time that Allah has,
Without question, most Muslims today, the overwhelming majority of Muslims today, you can hardly find a Muslim today who is faithful to the system of time given by Allah. And 999 out of every 1,000 is following the system of time given by Dajjal. And the Darul Ulum is silent on this subject. The scholars and the Maulanas and the Muftis and the Sheikh are silent on this subject. Yes? If the moon is only important for the beginning of Ramadan and for Eid, that's all. And the rest of the time, you have no contact with the moon. You are betraying Allah's deen. So yes, I believe that most Muslims are missing Laylatul Qadr, particularly the Salafi, who may be in London, but their moon is in Saudi. Next question.
We have just over 20 minutes again before we conclude. So I promised Abdullah that I'll get to him. So Opus, then Sister Khalida from Australia, and Brother Abdullah, and we'll close off after that, inshallah. So please keep your questions concise and short.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hello. Walaikum salam.
First of all, I would love to thank you, Sheikh, for everything you're teaching us. You're really enlightening us in our trajectory. My question is simple. I just would like.
Is this Khalida from Cindy?
No, this is Opus. Could you give us your correct name?
Sorry, my name is Lamia. I'm calling you from Montreal, Canada.
Montreal.
And yeah, so my question is this: right now, with everything that's going on in the world, how can we ensure everything after Russia, hopefully, or I don't know, wins the war, that it doesn't become the oppressor? Thank you.
We have to look carefully to see evidence that someone is an oppressor before we open our mouth to declare that he is an oppressor. What Russia has done is to come to the aid and the assistance of those who are oppressed. Had it not been for Russia, the Venezuelan government would have been destroyed and demolished long ago. Do you agree with that? Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Good. The Venezuelan government has survived so far because the United States dares not intervene militarily. And unless they intervene militarily, they cannot overthrow the Venezuelan government. So Russia is on the side of the oppressed, saving them from oppression in Venezuela. And then in Syria, who created ISIS? Who funded them? Who provided them with state-of-the-art weapons? The CIA. That's right. The American CIA and the Israeli Mossad and the Saudi CIA. And then the Qatari CIA and the Turkish CIA. They are the ones who provided all the weapons to ISIS. And if ISIS had succeeded, then the Christians of Syria would have been slaughtered mercilessly. And ISIS, so-called Islamic State, would have been established in Damascus, and Israel would have been happy. That the whole world would see. Here, look at what they have in Damascus, and Israel could wage a war that the whole world will support. How are we saved from that? Had it not been, Iran on her own could not defeat them. Had it not been for Russia, then the CIA plan and the ISIS plan and the Mossad plan for Syria and Iraq would have succeeded, and the Turkish plan would have succeeded. So we have to thank Russia for saving us from Syria becoming another Libya. And now again, look at Ukraine. See, Russia has intervened because of the people of Donbass who were oppressed for 7 years. But the New York Times won't tell that to you. And the CNN and Al Jazeera will not tell that. The media will not say that. That these people were oppressed for 7 years. That the CIA and the Mossad, they spent $5 billion to bring about a regime change, a color revolution in Ukraine in 2014. And they were able to change a pro-Russian government and replace it with an anti-Russian government. And they paid for it. And the people of Donbass said, no, we will not accept that. We refused to accept this color revolution. And guess what they did? They oppressed these people, war taking place, people being killed for 7 years. And Russia waited for 7 years. I would not have waited for 7 years. Russia waited for 7 years before Russia intervened to seek to help the oppressed and to restrain the oppressor. And so you cannot, on the basis of Russian conduct so far, you cannot say of Russia that it's an oppressor. But the ISIS people who wage their bogus jihad in Syria, they're biting their fingernails in frustration. And they're calling me all kinds of bad names. Oh yes, nasty names. Because they are furious that Russia knocked the daylights out of them in Syria. And now we have to look forward to see whether this is indeed, as I have said, a new world order coming into being, the second Qarn of Qarnayn, in which power will now be used in the world to resist the oppressor and to liberate the oppressed. Next.
Sister Khalida. Sister Khalida from Sydney, then Brother Abdullah from Sweden, and I'm seeing Brother M.A. Abdullah from Afghanistan.
Go ahead. Sister Khalida?
You mean Brother Abdullah from the Netherlands, not Sweden?
Sorry, Netherlands, sorry.
Abdullah, Sister Khalida from Sydney?
Yeah.
Hello? She's not there.
Okay, Brother Abdullah, go ahead.
Abdullah.
As-salamu alaykum, Sheikh. This is Zakaria from the Netherlands. The name is Abdullah on the screen. The question is about the birth. I have a question about the birth of the false Messiah. You said
I said I'm going to be with you soon, inshallah, in Netherlands. Yes, go ahead.
Inshallah, inshallah. I'm looking forward to that day, Sheikh. Can't wait until you are here, inshallah. May Allah preserve you. I have a question about the 40 days about Al-Masih al-Dajjal, his birth, because we have mentioned a lot of things about Al-Masih al-Dajjal, but we have not mentioned when he will be born. Will he be born in the second day of the 40 days that he has been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or will he be born in the third day, meaning in Yawm al-Tashahar?
You're using the word born.
Yes, because he's a human being like us.
You're using the word born.
Yes.
To be born implies to emerge as a baby in this material universe.
Yes.
That is not possible for Dajjal unless and until he has completed a day which is like a year, a day which is like a month, and a day which is like a week. When he has completed the 3 parts of the shadow, Intaliku ila zillin zi salasi shu'ab suratul mursalat. When he has completed the 3 parts of the shadow, only then would he be born into this world. We do not have micro information on the subject. What we do have very clearly is that he would be a young man, powerfully built, with the curls at the side that they call sideburns, that the Torah has ordered the Israelite people to keep, the sideburns, and that he will be based in Jerusalem, and that he will declare, I am the Messiah. But his birth and his early childhood and so on, you'll have to find information on that from someone else, because I have not devoted time to that, no. Okay, next.
Okay. I have another question, Sheikh. I have another question. Yes, this is about something else. You said that the future of scholarship will be in Pakistan. And according to you, that is your opinion. I wanted to ask, is it not possible for us as your students and those who follow you to at least gather and collect money to help you establish a university or something in Pakistan where you can frequently give your lessons and lectures, etc.?
The reason why I said that the future scholar, the world of Islamic scholarship that is going to dazzle mankind tomorrow will come from Pakistan, is because you cannot be a scholar of Islam in this modern age with any credibility at all unless you have some capacity to turn to the Quran to explain the phenomenon of modern Western civilization. Have I made myself clear? The only one I have found who has pioneered this capacity to go to the Quran, to use the Quran in defiance of classical and traditional Islamic commentary, to explain the phenomenon of the modern age to the best of his ability, is Dr. Muhammad Iqbal, even with the mistake that he made. I have not found any other scholar of the modern age with that kind of capacity that he displayed, despite the mistakes that he made. And it is he, Dr. Iqbal, who in his book, he put the title of his book, and it is, it is a challenging title. Yes, it is even an audacious title. He put it, The Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam. That title by itself is a trailblazer. You have to have a tremendous amount of courage to even utter those words. A reconstruction of religious thought in Islam. That's courageous on his part. I don't see anybody else who have said that. And from Iqbal came my teacher, Maulana Muhammad, Dr. Muhammad Fazlur Rahman Ansari, and he responded to Iqbal's plea for a reconstruction of religious thought in Islam. I am but just a little spark, nothing more than that, from that great fire that was Muhammad Fazlur Rahman Ansari. We are other scholars who are students of my teacher. I'm not the only one. We have right here in Trinidad, we have Maulana Siddiq Ahmad Nasir. In Netherlands at this time, I just got the news, there's Sheikh Ali Mustafa, who's a student of Maulana Fazlur Rahman Ansari, and who is from Suriname, but he is in Netherlands at this time. And I'm looking forward to meet him when I go to the Netherlands. Here in Trinidad, there's Maulana Dr. Wafi Muhammad, who was a student of Maulana Ansari. In Durban, in South Africa, there's Dr. Abul Fadl Mohsen Ibrahim, who is a professor of Islamic studies at the University of Durban, and who is one of the world's foremost specialists in Islamic medical ethics. These are students of Maulana Fazlur Rahman. I'm not the only one. But I am saying that I see the last shower of rain coming from that profile created by Iqbal and taken up by Muhammad Fazlur Rahman Ansari. I don't see the last shower of rain coming from elsewhere. Yes, we have already established an Institute of Islamic Eschatology, which is functioning online in Pakistan now. My student, Hasbullah Shafi'i, is in Singapore, and he's teaching from Singapore. There is Sheikh, what's his name now in New York? Omar Baloch, yes. Sheikh Omar Baloch, who is rising rapidly as a scholar of Islamic eschatology, and others who will come, inshallah, who will join us. And hopefully that we're able to achieve some success in teaching this subject. We don't need big buildings. We don't need millions of dollars. We need centers for teaching, and where you'll only have not more than 10 students in a class, that's all. And a course in Islamic eschatology can be taught in a few months' time. And then you go out, and from the best of them, we choose those who become teachers. Next.
Sister Khalida.
Go ahead.
A small one, excuse me. But at least that we can help you for laptops and something like that.
Can help him with?
Sending money to buy laptops, equipment that you will need to teach this online courses. Yeah, something like that. Why not?
Yes, yes. People are always helping me with travel expenses. I always get the help, Alhamdulillah. I'm now engaged. I'm going out now for extensive travel. I already have some help from travel expenses, but I need more funds to meet with travel expenses. Sometimes I have to take a student with me, like to Greece. I can't go alone. I'll have to take a student with me to Greece, take someone with me. So I'll have to pay expenses for that student as well. So if you want to assist, just send me an email, inshallah. Next.
I will send you.
Yeah.
As-salamu alaykum, Sheikh. This is Sister Khalida from Sydney.
Okay, Sister Khalida from Sydney. Go ahead.
Yes, I have, first of all, I wanted to mention to you that ever since recitation of the Quran, I have been really seeing that the time is moving slowly.
Oh, mashallah.
Yes. So I've actually, honestly, I can see the day just prolonging so much. It doesn't end. So it's been very extremely slow, and it's amazing. I can just fit so much into the day that I was previously so busy and wasn't able to have the time. Now I have so much time. Now, just on that point, I'm going to just ask a question about Surah Kahf, your book, which is the modern translation of Surah Al-Kahf, and it is the translation and modern commentary. So that's the book. In that, you have mentioned the ayah, which is 18:12, where you mention that, and then we awakened them. I'm saying this in English, so that we might mark out which of the 2 points of view showed a better comprehension of the time span during which they had remained in this state. What I noticed was that all the other scholars of translation of this verse mentioned this verse as which of the 2 groups or factions. Whilst I agree with your commentary about the time, I believe that I wonder if this is to do with the 2 ummas, the 2 factions.
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah. لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا عملا.
Yes.
We woke them up from their sleep so that we might know which of the 2 fractions have a better grasp of how much time they spend while they sleep. In other words, this event of the young men being put to sleep and then sleeping for 300 years, and their bodies rolling to the left and to the right in synchrony with sunshine. All of this, and then they are awakened up from sleep. All of this is connected with what Allah is directing our attention to, namely the subject of time. And in the subject of time, the movement of time backward and forward. That is the crux of it.
Okay.
Not too much. And when you leave this passage in Surah Al-Kahf, and you go to, is it Surah Al-Sad with the Jasad? Is it Surah Al-Sad? Probably I may be wrong.
Yeah.
If Sulaiman alayhi salam is sitting on his throne, holding on to his staff, and the Quran says that when he died, they did not know that he was dead, meaning the jinn did not know that he was dead. Everybody else knew he was dead. Everybody else knew he was dead. But the jinn who were in chains did not know he was dead, because they saw someone sitting on his throne holding on to his staff. And the one who was sitting on the throne holding on to his staff was able to use the miraculous min sa'a of the staff. That min sa'a of the staff gives you the capacity to penetrate into time and to move backwards and forward in time. So there's a link between Surah Al-Kahf and Surah Al-Sad.
Right.
And Allah is giving us a warning that Dajjal has this capacity, that he is able to insert himself in time and move backwards and forwards in time. لِنَعْلَمَ أَيُّ الْحِزْبَيْنِ أَحْصَى لِمَا لَبِثُوا أَمَدًا. So Allah is using this event to direct attention to the system of time and to the capacity for someone to penetrate into time and to move time backwards and forwards. That's enough for my explanation. Yes. Next.
Okay, we're gonna take one more question, inshallah, from Brother M.A. Abdullah, Afghanistan.
Hello? Or he's not there?
No, if he's not there, well,
okay.
Assalamualaikum, Sheikh.
Hello?
Hello, Assalamualaikum, Sheikh.
Walaikum salam. Who is this?
Ana Mukhtar from Indonesia.
From Indonesia, okay.
Brother Mukhtar, I see Brother Abdullah from Afghanistan has unmuted himself, so let me take his question and then we'll fit you in and then we'll end, okay, inshallah?
Go ahead.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
So one question, sir.
Salam, Brother Abdullah. Go ahead.
According to Islamic eschatology, or we know from
Brother Abdullah, check your connection.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I said that according to Islamic eschatology, or we know from where the Malhama will be started, and what would be the role of Khurasan in post-Malhama?
We are, there is a hadith about the north of Syria. There's a hadith about the north of Syria. But the other hadith is, of course, that the mountain of gold will provoke the Malhama. My suspicion is it's going to be a false flag attack. For example, someone detonating a bomb that will kill a couple hundred American soldiers somewhere, or destroy an American consulate somewhere, and provoking a military response from the United States in order to get the Malhama. I believe this is probably what's going to happen. But What we know about the Malhama is that most of those who are fighting for the mountain of gold will be killed, which is NATO. After the Malhama is more important to us than the Malhama itself. After the Malhama comes the conquest of Constantinople. And that's where the Turkish people are in denial and the people in the Balkans. And when the conquest of Constantinople takes place, then there's an army which is going to come to conquer Constantinople. And our Prophet ﷺ prophesied and praised that army and praised the commander. My view is I believe a lot of Kurdish Muslims from Kurdish Muslims are going to be in that army because they have suffered a lot from Turkey. And I believe a lot of Muslims from the North Africa, Arab Muslims from North Africa are going to be in that army. But yes, you are correct, from Khorasan as well, in that army which will conquer Constantinople. Who are they going to fight against? Answer, they will fight those who want to keep Hagia Sophia as a masjid. Those are the ones they'll fight against. But the others, of course, are the secular nationalist Turks and so on. And this army will liberate Constantinople. Yes, Khorasan has a place in it. Okay, next question. Hello? Is it Roshan?
This is Ali from Angola.
From where?
Angola.
Alabama?
Angola, is in Africa.
Hello,
can you hear me, sir?
Zuna, I was supposed to take Brother Mukhtar's question. I'm going to take his question, inshallah, okay?
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Sorry about that.
Hello, Assalamualaikum, Sheikh. Alhamdulillah. Ana Mukhtar.
MashaAllah, from
Indonesia. From Indonesia.
Yes, go ahead.
The first time I hope you can make dua for me, particular for me, so that I can make hijrah to village. Inshallah, amin.
Well, you have many. You have beautiful. You have so many kampung in Indonesia.
Naam, Sheikh. Alhamdulillah. My question is, what is the role of the Ramzan Kadyrov, Chechen, of the Malhama?
Yes, Ramzan Kadyrov and the Chechen. We are proud.
I have two questions.
Would you listen to me, please?
Yes.
Yes. Ramzan Kadyrov and the Chechen Muslims, we are proud of them. We are happy that they are supporting the Russian government. And those who don't like what we have said, we don't care. They can go their way. They can go their way. That our Muslim brothers in Russia are prepared to fight to support the Russian government in its efforts to liberate the oppressed from Donbass. Okay, next.
Okay, guys, we just have 8 minutes. I'm just going through the list randomly and selecting people that may have, not been able to get a chance. Sister Aziza from Germany.
Hello.
Shukran.
As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You can hear me, please?
Yes, I can.
Alhamdulillah. And I have very, very short two questions. I have the possibility to go to Tunisia when I go with my two sisters, but the problem is I don't know we are safety there. I thought maybe I can look for a small house in the mountains, but I'm afraid there are a lot of people who maybe it's dangerous because we are alone, three sisters. The other question is, please, why you don't come to Germany and maybe yes, Okay, thank you very much. Barakallahu fiik.
All right, the first question is, I cannot speak about Hijra to Tunisia. I've never been to Tunisia, but I hope, inshallah, one day I might be able to visit Tunisia, okay? So I cannot advise concerning Hijra to Tunisia. The second subject is, of course, I would be happy to visit Germany, but I cannot do it on this trip because my program is already fixed. I will visit Netherlands, yes, and go to Armenia after that, but no possibility. But you can come from Germany to Amsterdam or to Rotterdam. I don't know which other cities are. It's not a long drive for you, inshallah, okay? Sometime in the future, inshallah, I'll be able to visit Germany, provided I have several of my books have been translated to German. We have a team in Zurich and in Germany, which is translating my books to German. And we need to simply get a printery and print the books in German. And then I can visit Germany and we can launch the books, inshallah. Thank you. Okay, that's it.
One more last question from Brother Roshan from Mauritius, and that's it.
My student Roshan, good. Hello.
As-salamu alaykum, Sheikh Imran. Pleasure to hear you.
Yes, thank you, Roshan.
Well, indeed, Sheikh, you are a blessing to all of us in the world in our understanding of the ayah of the Quran that require interpretation, even though it is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who knows their meanings. Many events happen in these classes show that you are following what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is writing in the manner as Al-Qidr was following. I have concluded personally that you are Sibghat Allah, and only Allah knows. My question, Sheikh Imran, is, could you advise us on how to follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is writing for us in our life instead of following our desires?
It is the Quran which must be your guide. I have been saying again and again, I want you to fall in love with the Quran. You cannot fall in love with the Quran unless you're reciting the Quran every day. You cannot fall in love with the Quran unless you khatam the Quran every lunar month. I was trying to do this several years ago, and I was so busy in Malaysia, no time, and it was so frustrating for me. I couldn't complete the Quran in 1 month. And then I decided to make a vow to Allah. I promise you, I'll do it. From the day I made that vow, Alhamdulillah, I have finished the Quran every month for several years now. If you're reciting the Quran regularly and you khatam the Quran every month, number one. Number two, if you recite the Quran the way Allah recited it, go to my book, the Quran and the Moon, and you'll find a way to recite the Quran. Number three, when you recited the Quran the way that Allah recited it, then you go to the second step to seek to understand the Quran. But you must always be making dua to Allah. Other people ask, oh Allah, give me a Mercedes-Benz motor car. I want a mountain of gold. I want a beautiful woman as a wife. But when you ask, this is what you ask for. Oh Allah, give me the knowledge of the Quran and protect me from making mistakes and being misguided in my understanding of the Quran and my explanation of the Quran. This is what I ask for. And if you keep on making this dua and you're faithful, then your persistent efforts will one day bear fruits. And Allah will give you a light with which to see. And you'll be able to penetrate the Quran. And when you follow the methodology given by my teacher, Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari, for the study of the Quran, then you go to the Hadith. Darul Uloom doesn't do that. And when you find a Hadith in harmony with the Quran, you accept it. But when you find a Hadith in conflict with the Quran, you do not accept it. This is the road, Roshan. This is the road, Roshan, to eventual success insofar as your relationship with the Quran is concerned. Okay, that's enough for today. And this is the last class. I wish all of you a blessed Ramadan, inshallah. And do please raise your hands and make dua for me in my travel. My travel, which will commence immediately after Eid al-Fitr. It is a dangerous road for me to travel. And now I'm even more older than before and difficult. So your du'as are important to me. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام.
وعليكم السلام.